These 100 teenagers are about to be sent to Earth after an apocalypse to check if humans can still survive on it, but the planet has changed significantly since humanity last set foot on it. A girl named Clark is drawing pictures of earthly landscapes while sitting in a giant space station orbiting the blue planet. Clark narrates that 97 years ago, a nuclear war on Earth turned into a nuclear apocalypse that killed everyone and left the Earth covered in radiation. At the time, 12 different nations had space stations orbiting the planet, and those stations were combined to form a mega-station called the Ark, which has been sustaining humanity ever since. At the moment, humanity is waiting for Earth to become radiation-free so that they may return to the ground. But it is estimated that this process can take 100 more years. Clark is revealed to be a juvenile prisoner as guards enter her cell and try to put a metallic wristband on her. Clark narrates that on the Ark there is zero tolerance for all crimes, and even the smallest ones are punishable by death, unless the criminal is under the age of 18, in which case they are jailed until they come of age. Death sentence is given through a process called floating, in which the offender is sent out into space. Clark panics as guards try to contain her, but her mother Abigail arrives and tells her that she is being sent to Earth. It's a chance for her to survive. Clark is sedated. Next, Clark awakens on a landing pod, along with 99 other juvenile offenders, all wearing the metallic wristbands. The Chancellor of the Ark, Jaha, speaks to them via video and says very clearly that they were chosen to go on this mission to check Earth's survivability because their status as criminals makes them expendable. The teenagers aren't happy to hear this. However, he adds that should the Earth be revealed as habitable, they will have aided in the discovery, and all their criminal records will be wiped clean. He adds that when they land on Earth, they must make their way to Mount Weather, an old military installation that is said to have enough food to feed 200 people for a year. By this point, all the teenagers are behaving like teenagers and have completely stopped listening. A boy named Finn has left his seat and is floating around trying to impress girls like Clark. Others are following his lead. Sitting next to Clark is Wells, the son of Jaha. Wells tells Clark that when he heard juvenile offenders were being sent to the ground, he committed a crime on purpose so that he could join her. However, Clark isn't very happy to see him. Wells apologizes for getting Clark's dad executed, but she doesn't want to hear it. The parachutes of the landing pod launch, and two of the boys floating around are knocked into walls. Their fall destroys all the communication systems on board. They can no longer contact the Ark. However, it is revealed that their wristbands are still transmitting their vitals. The landing pod reaches Earth. A boy named Bellamy is about to open the doors when Clark warns that the air could be toxic. Bellamy's sister Octavia meets up with him. Octavia was imprisoned just for being born because it is illegal to have more than one child on the Ark. Bellamy reveals that he isn't a juvenile offender, but he sneaked onto the landing pod just to look after Octavia. He opens the door, and Octavia steps out. She can breathe, she screams, and all the teenagers celebrate like they've arrived at a rave. Clark is excited too, but she worriedly checks her map. Finn asks her what's wrong, and she reveals that they have been dropped an entire forest away from Mount Weather, where they will find their next meal. Wells and Clark begin making a plan to go to Mount Weather, but because they are children of government officials, nobody is eager to listen to them. Bellamy and a boy named Murphy both mock Wells for thinking he'll be in charge on Earth just because his dad is in charge on the Ark. Murphy attacks Wells and injures his leg. Finn steps in to protect Wells. Bellamy explains to Octavia that he did something on the Ark to get on the landing pod, something that will get him in a lot of trouble with the law. Clark notices that Finn has tried to take off his metal wristband, and she cautions him against it. She says the wristbands are the only thing telling people on the Ark that they are alive. If they take them off, the people on the Ark will think they are dead and presume that the Earth is not habitable. Hence, they won't send down any help. Bellamy hears all this. Finn, Clark, and two boys named Jasper and Monty decide to go to Mount Weather. Octavia joins them. Wells wants to go, but he cannot walk. As they walk through the forest, Clark notices that they aren't seeing any animals. She worries it's because the radiation has killed them all. This would mean that they will soon die too. Just then, they spot a deer and admire its beauty. But when it turns its head, it's revealed that it is severely mutated. It has two heads. Back on the Ark, Abigail receives news that Chancellor Jaha has been shot. During his surgery, Abigail breaks the law and uses more resources than allowed per person to save him. Meanwhile, Vice Chancellor Kane is informed by a commander that Bellamy has been identified as Jaha's shooter. The commander also says that now that Kane is acting chancellor, he can give the order to kill people on the Ark to buy time. It is revealed that unbeknownst to the people, the life support system on the Ark is actually failing, and will fail completely unless the burden on it is reduced, and some time is dedicated to fixing it. Kane says that he wants to do this, but not like this. He will do it by the book, through a vote of the council. On Earth, everyone hates Wells, because anytime someone was imprisoned or someone's parents were floated, his dad is the one who gave the order. Bellamy speaks to Murphy and the other boys. He says that they need to take off their wristbands so that the people on the Ark don't follow them down here. He convinces them that their crimes won't actually be forgiven, and even if they are, they will still be treated like second-class citizens. Murphy and the boys agree to help Bellamy fool the people on the Ark and run things on Earth. On the Ark, Kane notices 2 wristbands suddenly going offline, and he is convinced that the kids are dying. Abigail says that sudden death is not how radiation works, so they can't be sure that the Earth is not habitable yet. On Earth, Jasper and Monty wonder why they've been sent down now instead of before, and Clark explains that the Ark's life support systems are failing. Her father was the first to discover this, and he wanted to tell the people the truth. Clark shared it with Wells, who was her friend at the time, and he told the government. The government believed it would cause a panic, so they floated Clark's father and imprisoned Clark because she also tried to tell the people. They arrive at a river, and Octavia does the most teenager thing by stripping down to her underwear and jumping in. A giant snake-like creature appears in the river and attacks Octavia. The others manage to save her by distracting the snake and getting her out. At night, Wells sees that Bellamy is convincing all the teenagers to take off their wristbands. He tells them that they will build their own society down here with no laws, so that they can do whatever they want. The message obviously appeals to the young and dumb. It starts raining, and Wells advises them to collect the water. On the Ark, Kane sentences Abigail to death for breaking the law during Jaha's surgery. Abigail says that she did it to keep Kane out of the chancellor position, and she'll gladly do it again. At night, Clark wakes up to find that the forests have bioluminescence. She and Finn share a sweet moment. Meanwhile, Bellamy and Murphy force Wells to remove his wristband. Kane takes Abigail to carry out the death sentence, but at the last moment, a half-recovered Jaha arrives and says that he has pardoned Abigail. On Earth, Clark's group decides to swing on a wine to cross the river. Jasper goes first in order to impress Octavia. He sticks the landing and they all celebrate. But just then, out of nowhere, a spear flies straight into Jasper's chest. Clark realizes they are not alone on Earth. Finn, Clark, Octavia, and Monty make a run for it. But as they are running, they hear Jasper's screams. They realize he's been taken alive. On the Ark, Jaha arrives in the control room and sees that Wells's wristband has gone offline. He is devastated, but Abigail says that there is no reason to assume that this means the kids are dying. The wristbands can go offline for many reasons. Kane says there is no time for false hope. Clearly, the Earth is not survivable, so they must take steps to save the Ark. In the morning, Wells sees that the teenagers are behaving like animals. He warns Bellamy that this chaos cannot be controlled, but Bellamy doesn't mind. Murphy attacks Wells again, and the two are fighting when Clark's group returns. They tell everyone that Jasper was attacked, and that they are not alone on Earth. Clark notices that most people have taken off their wristbands, and she says they need to stop because they need reinforcements from the Ark if they are going to survive against whoever is on the ground. Bellamy gives a rousing speech about how they can take care of themselves just fine, and privileged children of government employees like Wells and Clark just want their position in society back. Abigail tells Jaha that Kane will be bringing up the matter of killing people on the Ark, but they still have hope on Earth, so they must vote against it. Jaha tells her that the Ark is dying, and hope is not enough. On the ground, Clark sets out on a mission to rescue Jasper. She recruits the help of Bellamy, who has a gun, by telling him that he can't afford to look scared if he wants to lead all the young people. Wells and Finn also join the rescue party. Bellamy leaves a boy named Adam to look after Octavia. Before leaving, Clark tells Monty, who was trained in engineering, to try and re-establish communication with the Ark. On the Ark, a brilliant young engineer named Raven is getting ready to see her boyfriend in juvenile prison, but she is informed that the prison is quarantined due to a virus outbreak. She confronts Abigail about it and says that she can tell there is no outbreak, and that they are hiding something. On the ground, as Adam tries to contain Octavia's antics, a romance brews between the two. The rescue party splits up, and Finn and Clark come across a waterfall. They decide to take a break and cool off, which leads to some romantic moments between the two. Next, they discover blood on some rocks and find Jasper's goggles. They realize they must be close to him. On the Ark, Abigail catches Raven trying to sneak into the control room. Raven explains that the kids on the ground aren't dying. They're just rebellious teenagers, so they're probably taking the wristbands off, because that is exactly what they were told not to do. Adam and Octavia discover a forest full of bioluminescent butterflies and share a heartfelt kiss. The rescue party finds Jasper tied to a tree, with some natural medicines on his chest wound to keep him alive. They deduce that whoever did this wanted them to find him. On the Ark, a council meeting takes place where Cain moves to kill 209 common people to buy time to fix life support systems. The vote is tied, and the chancellor is to be the tiebreaker. Jaha refuses to vote, and according to the law, this means that the vote will be taken up again in 10 days. Jaha tells Abigail that she has 10 days to establish communication with the kids on Earth and prove the planet is survivable, so that the people on the Ark don't have to be killed. As the rescue party is cutting Jasper down from the tree, a leopard-like creature arrives and heads for Bellamy. Wells, who secretly stole Bellamy's gun, shoots the creature. Abigail enlists the help of Raven to repair an old landing pod so that she can go down to Earth and prove that it is habitable. Raven agrees to help as long as she gets to go with Abigail, because her boyfriend is down there as well. Abigail agrees. On the ground, the rescue party returns with Jasper and the body of the leopard-like creature, which they plan to eat. The teenagers are happy to finally have some food. Clark gets to work on curing Jasper. Bellamy tells people that if they want food, they will have to take off their wristbands. But Finn reminds them that initially, Bellamy told them they can do whatever they want down here. That was the point. He takes food without taking off his wristband. Next, Bellamy catches Adam making out with Octavia and punishes him for it. Meanwhile, a ground native secretly watches all this happening. Clark has a flashback of 1 year ago, where Clark, her father Jake, Jaha, and Wells are watching an old football game on the Ark. Jake receives news of an analysis report that he's been working on, and his face suddenly becomes grim. In the present, Clark is trying to cure Jasper, who is in a lot of pain and screaming. The other teenagers are getting upset by the racket he's making. Clark comes outside and finds a little girl named Charlotte screaming in her sleep. She wakes up and tells Clark that her parents were floated, and she dreams about it every night. Clark comforts her. A couple of teenagers are out for a stroll during the night when a strange yellow fog engulfs them. It burns them. The next morning, Octavia tries to flirt with Adam, but he doesn't respond, and Octavia realizes that Bellamy probably did something. She lashes out at him. More and more people start complaining about Jasper's screams, and Bellamy says that if he's not better by tomorrow, they'll have to kill him, because he's bringing down morale. Clark, Monty, and even Octavia call him a jerk, but Finn agrees that Jasper may be a lost cause. In the flashback, Jake shares with Abigail that the Ark only has a year of oxygen supply left. He says the people have a right to know this, so that they can dedicate every mind to coming up with a solution. But Abigail argues that telling the people will cause panic and anarchy. She tries to convince Jake to not go public with the information because he'll get floated, but he doesn't listen. Clark overhears all of this. In the present, Clark analyzes the herbs that the ground natives use to patch Jasper up. She says that if they can find more of it, they might be able to cure Jasper. Wells, who is a skilled botanist, says they can probably find the herb in a shallow body of water. Clark, Finn, and Wells go out looking for it. On the way, Wells tries to convince Clark to not hate him anymore, but she says that he got her dad killed. There is no forgiving that. On the way, they find the carcass of an old automobile. Bellamy and the gang are hunting for food when Charlotte joins them. First, they want to send her back, but when she shows eagerness, Bellamy hands her a knife and allows her to join the hunt. Finn, Clark, and Wells find the herb, which is actually a type of seaweed. Just then, the yellow fog from earlier arrives in a storm. Finn, Clark, and Wells hide inside the automobile they saw earlier to protect themselves from it. Bellamy and Charlotte hide in a cave, but Adam is caught in the fog. It burns him. In the flashback, Clark and Wells are playing chess, and she tells him what she overheard between her mom and her dad. She makes Wells promise to not tell his dad, and he agrees. In the present, Finn finds some booze in the car's glove compartment, and the three share a drink. Charlotte screams in her sleep again, and Bellamy gives her some cryptic advice, saying that she should slay her demons while awake, and then they won't disturb her when she's asleep. In the automobile, a very drunk Clark demands that Wells explain himself regarding why he betrayed her, but he just says that he made a mistake, which isn't a good enough explanation for Clark. Back at camp, people are locked inside the landing pod due to the fog outside, and Jasper's screams are upsetting everyone. Murphy gets up with the intention to kill Jasper, but Octavia and Monty lock the door to Jasper's cabin. In the flashback, Jake is recording a video message to tell people the truth, and Clark walks in. She says she wants to help, but Jake does not allow her. Just then, the authorities arrive and take Jake away. In the chaos, Clark tells him that she will find a way to warn the people. In the present, the fog clears, and the gang starts making their way back to Jasper. On the way, Finn speaks to Clark and says that Wells clearly loves her, but he never gives a straight answer when it comes to the subject of her dad. He asks her if she's 100% sure that Wells is the one who revealed her dad's secret. She says that he is the only one she told. Finn asks whether he was the only one who knew, and leaves Clark contemplating. Bellamy finds Adam, and his entire body is burned and covered in boils. He begs Bellamy to kill him. Clark arrives, observes Adam's body, and signs to Bellamy that nothing can be done. She grabs a knife and puts him out of his misery. Bellamy respects Clark from that point on. They arrive back to camp, and Octavia is devastated at the sight of Adam's decaying body. In the flashback, Abigail, Clark, Jaha, and Wells look on as Jake gets floated. Before he is floated, Abigail informs him that she will try to find refuge for the people on Earth. In the present, Clark makes medicine with the seaweed and gives it to Jasper. She comes outside and finds Wells digging a grave for Adam. She tells Wells that she has put two and two together and realized that it wasn't Wells who revealed her dad's secret. It was her mom, because she was the only other person who knew. Wells admits that he knew hating her mom would be a terrible feeling, so he let her hate him instead. He just wanted to protect her from the horrible truth. Clark apologizes and hugs him. Next, the medicine works, and Jasper wakes up. Everyone is happy. Wells is on guard duty when he is joined by Charlotte. They are having a nice talk when Charlotte suddenly stabs Wells in the neck and slices off his fingers when he tries to reach for her. As he slowly dies, Charlotte tells him that his dad gave the order to float her parents, and she sees it in her dreams every night. The only way she can sleep is by slaying her demons, so she has to kill him. Next, Clark stands over Wells's grave. Finn arrives and tells her to be vigilant because it is possible that a ground native killed Wells. Clark discusses with Finn how Wells allowed her to hate him, to spare her the pain of hating her own mother. She wishes that there was some way for her to cause her mother the pain that she has caused her. She comes up with an idea. She has Monty remove her wristband, and on the Ark, Abigail panics as she struggles with the idea that Clark has possibly died. Monty tells Clark that he is close to using the wristbands to create a communications device, which will allow them to contact the Ark. Outside, fear of the ground natives has galvanized the teenagers into building a wall around their camp. Jasper and Octavia venture outside the wall. Jasper trips and spots a knife and Wells' fingers. On the Ark, Kane is suspicious that Abigail is making frequent trips to one particular part of the space station. It's the part where Abigail secretly has Raven working on the old landing pod. Abigail tells Raven they need to finish the landing pod repairs as soon as possible. Raven says the only part they need is a pressure regulator, and she knows where to get one. On the ground, Jasper and Octavia share what they have found with Bellamy and Clark. Clark says the knife is made out of metal from their own landing pod, which means Wells's killer was not a ground native, but one of them. The knife has Murphy's initials on it, and Clark goes out to confront him, despite Bellamy trying to warn her against doing so. Clark accuses Murphy of killing Wells, and all the teenagers are easily convinced because Murphy attacked Wells on multiple occasions before, and he also tried to kill Jasper. The mob of teenagers decides that Murphy should be hanged. Clark tries to convince them that revenge isn't justice, but they don't listen. Clark realizes she's made a mistake. The mob hangs Murphy and asks Bellamy to kick the bucket from underneath him. Bellamy gives the people what they want. But seeing all this, Charlotte can't take it anymore, and she confesses that she is the one who killed Wells. Clark saves Murphy just in time. On the Ark, Raven arrives to meet Nigel, an illegal parts dealer. She asks her for a pressure regulator, and Nigel says in return, Raven has to sleep with someone to whom Nigel owes a favor. Raven doesn't take the deal. Back on Earth, Murphy is outraged and demands that Charlotte be hung, just like he was about to be. Bellamy, Clark, and Finn are trying to come up with a plan to defuse the situation. Bellamy walks out and tries to talk Murphy down, but since he tried to execute Murphy, Murphy no longer respects his authority. He forces his way into the tent, but Finn and Clark have run away with Charlotte. On the Ark, Raven tells Abigail that she couldn't procure the pressure regulator from Nigel. Abigail meets with Nigel and gives her some morphine in return for the part. Nigel takes the deal. On Earth, Charlotte tries to hold Clark's hand, and Clark yells at her, reminding her that they are just trying to save her life, and it doesn't mean that she's forgiven for killing Wells. She's a killer and should feel remorse. Finn takes the girls to an underground bunker that he discovered earlier in the day. They hide in the bunker from Murphy. On the Ark, Nigel informs Kane about Raven and Abigail's deal with her in order to gain favor with him. Clark wakes up and finds that Charlotte is gone. Charlotte is running through the jungle when Bellamy finds her. He tells her that he will save her, but Charlotte is ridden with guilt and says that she just wants to turn herself in. Bellamy tries to save her regardless, as Murphy and his group arrive looking for her. On the Ark, Abigail is informed that Kane is coming to arrest her. She tells Raven that she will distract Kane and orders her to leave in the pod by herself. As long as they can prove that Earth is habitable, nothing else matters. On Earth, Bellamy reaches a cliff, and Murphy and his group corner him and Charlotte. Finn and Clark arrive, and Murphy takes Clark hostage, demanding that Bellamy hand over Charlotte. Refusing to let anyone else die because of her, Charlotte jumps off of the cliff and kills herself. Enraged, Bellamy attacks Murphy and nearly kills him, but Clark stops him. She says they need to stop living like animals and make some rules. They decide to banish Murphy from the camp. On the Ark, Abigail distracts Kane, while Raven launches in the landing pod. Kane arrests Abigail. On the ground, Monty finishes the communication device he's been building, but as they test it, it doesn't work, and instead, it fries all the wristbands that remained active. Finn is incredibly frustrated and breaking things in the hidden bunker. He tells Clark it's over, and they are stuck on Earth all alone. Clark tells him he is not alone, not as long as she's around. The two proceed to passionately make love to each other. The next morning, Clark tells Finn that this wasn't just her trying to find comfort with someone. She actually likes Finn. Finn responds with a joke. Red flag, girl. On the Ark, Abigail is sitting in prison when Jaha arrives and tells her that she has been granted release because medical is overwhelmed and doctors are needed. He shows her that the oxygen levels on the Ark are dropping drastically. He also informs her that Kane's plan to kill people to buy time has been approved by the council. Clark and Finn are sitting under the stars together when they notice a shooting star. Upon closer inspection, Clark realizes that it's not a shooting star, it's a landing pod. She and Finn rush to check on it. The people at camp see the pod as well and excitedly theorize what the Ark has sent down for them. Bellamy is worried as he remembers his crime on the Ark. He gives the order that no one will go to the pod at night, as it's too dangerous. They'll check it out in the morning. Raven is knocked out because the pod has crash-landed. The Ark is consistently trying to contact her via radio. Finn and Clark arrive at camp and find out that Bellamy is gone. They realize that he is going for the radio in the pod because ever since he's been down on the ground, he's consistently tried to make sure that the Ark doesn't find out the truth about Earth. Octavia catches up to Bellamy and demands to know the truth. Bellamy tells her that when he found out she was among the 100 juveniles being sent to Earth, he desperately wanted to get on the landing pod to look after her. Someone offered him a deal where he had to shoot Jaha in return for a place on the pod. Octavia cannot believe it, and she tells him that she didn't ask him to do any of this. On the Ark, Kane is telling Jaha about how they will make the culling of people on the Ark look like an accident. Jaha agrees to the plan, but he says that he will join the people who are dying, leaving Kane as the new chancellor. Kane is shocked. On the ground, Bellamy reaches Raven's pod and takes out the radio while she is knocked out. He throws the radio into a river. Raven finally wakes up, and at the same time, Clark arrives. Raven gets out and enjoys being on Earth. Finn arrives, and it is revealed that he is the boyfriend that Raven was going to meet in juvenile prison. Clark awkwardly watches on as the two lovers share a passionate kiss. Raven tells Clark that her mom is the one who made this happen. She also informs them that they need to contact the Ark immediately, because if they don't, the council will go ahead with the culling. Abigail calls Jaha a coward for joining the people who are dying and not staying behind and looking for a solution. She goes to her room and takes out the old video message that Jake recorded. On Earth, Octavia is on her way back to camp when she trips, falls, and is knocked unconscious. Clark and Finn catch up with Bellamy and demand to know where the radio from Raven's pod is. Raven tells them both that Bellamy is a wanted man for shooting Jaha, but she also reveals to Bellamy that Jaha is still alive. Clark tells Bellamy that this means he is not a killer. He is simply a man who tried to protect his sister. She implores him to give them the radio. On the Ark, Abigail plays Jake's message for everyone to see and informs everyone about the culling. Bellamy has all the teenagers look for the radio in the river, and they find it. But it would take too long to fix, and they need to contact the Ark before the culling takes place. Raven comes up with an idea. On the Ark, people gather outside the Chancellor's office. Kane is worried there's going to be a riot, but to his and everyone's surprise, people actually start volunteering to join the culling. The volunteers include parents who want their kids to survive and spouses volunteering so that their significant others might have a chance. Jaha admits that Jake was right. The truth has brought out the best in people. On the ground, Raven's plan turns out to be launching flares with enough power that they fly above the atmosphere and are seen by the Ark. Awkwardness between Finn, Clark, and Raven continues. Jaha still intends to join those being culled, but Kane stops him. He says that the people are stepping up for self-sacrifice because they have a leader like Jaha, who inspires, whom they trust with the well-being of their families. Kane is not that leader. They need Jaha going forward. The people volunteering for the culling say goodbye to their families, while on the ground, all the young people work on building powerful flare rockets. The culling takes place, and it is a heart-wrenching spectacle. On the ground, the young people launch the flare rockets. Clark looks at them and wonders out loud whether one can wish on these kinds of shooting stars. Bellamy asks her what she would wish for, and she enviously looks at Finn and Raven. Octavia wakes up in the jungle and sees a ground native standing above her. On the Ark, Jaha and Abigail sit together and try to fathom what has happened on the Ark today. As they drink, they look outside the window and see the flare rockets. They are both in shock. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.